called ibrutinib. The drug's muscular name, ibrutinib, olanzapine, sounds like the hero of one of those post-Conan movies starring some stack of sculpted tofu who will never be Arnold Schwarzenegger. But you won't find me disrespecting the package when the contents have such an impact. Saved from the unnerving blood count plunge which set in when my lurking ailment came out of remission, I'm back to having time to burn. Though I haven't really got a chance, I haven't got an end date either. I'm not off the hook, but the hook is holding me upright, and it doesn't even hurt, which makes me a lot luckier than some of the people I see at the hospital. In the 5 years before the latest crisis, I used up a lot of my blessed supply of extra time by reading. When Yale kindly asked me to write a little book about what I had been reading lately, I could barely fit what I had to say into the space allowed. There were always more books getting into my house, and readers of latest readings might easily have got the idea that reading books was all that I was doing with my enforced leisure. But I was also viewing, and I mean viewing everything. You might ask how a man who spent his days with the major poems of Browning could wish to spend his evenings with the minor movies of Chow Yun-fat. But I could only reply that it was a duplex need buried deep in my neural network. Even in my weakness, my age-old, oil-burning TV and DVD habit, which had once been a VHS habit, but the dealers re-upped with some great new stuff, had not grown less. But the advent of the critically credentialed TV epic, niftily slotted into a folding sleeve, amplified a long-term addiction into a form of brain-scrambling suicide. Because I wasn't just watching the new and often wonderful box sets, I was also continuing to watch, on the sludge channels, multiple rescreenings of the kind of old and not at all wonderful James Bond movie in which Roger Moore wears a flared safari suit and emits quips in close-up that achieve the difficult feat of making you remember Sean Connery's similar epigrams as rivaling the table talk of Oscar Wilde. For honesty's sake, if I was going to give an account of how I dealt with the new high-end product, I would have to place my response in the context of the established brain patterns of someone who still felt compelled to switch on yet another screening of Salt and wait to see whether Angelina, when jumping from truck to truck through a blizzard of gunfire, might this time miss her mobile aiming point and smack the speeding concrete highway with her improbably lush lips. Once again, I had more to say going in than the book could possibly hold. What to call it? Latest viewings sounded too self-referential. My younger daughter Lucinda, whose key role in this enterprise will emerge in the telling, wanted me to call it Band of Thrones, thereby conflating the titles of the two box sets that could be thought of as bookends for our total viewing experience, stretched over several years. Yes, we were in it together, initially in fair moderation with The Sopranos and The West Wing, and then, when the true raging binge passion had set in, from our second viewing of Band of Brothers all the way through to the 5th season of Game of Thrones. We jumped together on the night before D-Day, and we defended the wall together against armies of tediously repellent CGI White Walker zombies. Indeed, we had been in it together, the entire family had, since The Sopranos and The West Wing had introduced us all to the dizzy new pleasure of watching more than one episode of the same show in a single evening. But surely 3 episodes was the maximum possible. Serious people had to retire for the night. It was Lucinda and I who pushed it all the way to 4 and even 5. And now, every Saturday in the tiny parlour of my house of books, we binge-watch at that heady rate. Together, we may well be the only people in the world who have ever watched 5 episodes of the following in succession without succumbing to catatonia. Would Kevin Bacon ever meet a character who was not a serial killer? That question kept us awake instead of putting us to sleep. How you can do that much watching without using up the universe is a question we will get to later. For now, enough to say that from the Bada Bing to King's Landing seemed like a